This is the first presidential election in Ohio where voters are required to show a valid photo ID, such as a driver's license, a passport, a military ID, or a state-issued ID. But sometimes there's a problem, and a voter's identity can be in question. I talked about options for those voters in those situations with Naza Kapasha with the League of Women Voters of Ohio. Voters sometimes forget their ID. It's expired. A poll worker doesn't think their signature matches the one in the book. What do voters do in those kind of circumstances?
Yeah, so if you show up to vote and for any reason the poll worker is telling you that you cannot vote a regular ballot because, like you said, your ID might be expired or you moved, we have a fail-safety in Ohio called a provisional ballot, and it's really for the benefit of the voter. The good news is that if any of those things happened, you can vote that provisional ballot and that you have 4 days to cure your ballot. So it really depends on your circumstance, why you needed to vote that provisional ballot. But let's just say, for example, that your ID was expired. In the 4 days you have to cure your ID, you need to go to the BMV, update your ID. They'll give you an interim ID, which is a paper ID, and that's totally okay. And then you would take that to the Board of Elections and show them your ID, and your provisional ballot will be counted. Same thing, for example, like if you had a name change, you have 4 days to show up with your court order or your marriage license or whatever it is to again cure your ballot. And so you need to make sure to pay attention to the instructions from the poll worker to do whatever it is you need to cure that ballot.
Now, there are limits on provisional ballots, though. You can only cast them in your correct precinct, right? You can't cast them anywhere.
That's correct. It's really important that people show up to their correct polling location. And the way to think about this is that every location has a different ballot because there are local issues on your ballot, right? So you can't show up somewhere else where they're voting potentially on different things. So if you live in Ohio and you moved within Ohio, you can still go vote, but you can't vote at your old voting location. You've got to go to your voting location that's assigned to the residence that you live in. And so you can call your county board of elections to figure out what that is, or you can call the League of Women Voters and we'll help you. But show up to the correct polling location that is assigned to the residence that you live in, and then you can get that straightened out. You might have to vote a provisional ballot, but you can get that straightened out in the next 4 days, either way.
What about college students? Where do they vote? Do they have to go home, or can they vote, like if they're from Cleveland and going to Ohio State, can they vote in Columbus?
Yeah, college students are special. They get their choice. So college students can vote at home, quote, if they consider their parents' house their home residence. Many other states, I don't have it memorized for every state, but I know that our surrounding states like Pennsylvania and Michigan, if you are from out of state, you can vote at home. But if you are from another county, again, you can choose your at-home residence as your voting residence, but you can also choose your dorm or apartment on campus to be your voting residence. And so the important thing is now that the voter registration deadline has expired. So you have to figure out where you are registered to vote. You can't change it at this point, and then you've got to vote at that location. Also important to know that the deadline to request a mail ballot has also changed. So at this point, you're going to have to vote in person if you haven't requested that mail ballot already. So Sunday is the last day of early voting. If you need to travel like out of your area or out of county, there is still a weekend of voting ahead of us to do that.
What are the assurances that voters have that their provisional ballot will be counted?
Well, Ohio has very good bipartisan, transparent structures in place to make sure that every vote is counted and that the election results are accurate. So for provisional ballots, for example, those provisional ballots, they all have different circumstances. They are reviewed but in a public meeting by the Board of Elections. And so people can show up and see what that looks like. Like what is the procedure for for reviewing a provisional ballot. Why is it denied? Why is it approved? And if people have any questions, they can raise them at that meeting.
The Ohio Voter Rights Coalition runs the Ohio Election Protection Hotline for voters who have concerns or problems. It's at 866-OUR-VOTE.